the Madman! Welcome to a massive Titans review. A lot of new cards, and the first one that we're gonna look at is big. It's Cologarn, an infamously huge fight in the World of Warcraft. 8 mana, 6/10 legendary with Rush. Whenever this attacks a minion, put it into your hand. Death Rattle, move any in your hand to your opponents. The card's cool. It is basically, at the worst case, it is a sap that your opponent has to spend amount of mana to kill. It's pretty hard to kill a 10 health guy. You need hard removal for that. So to play that hard removal, you typically have to spend mana. When you have played Cologarn, you've presumably done a removal on a very large minion from the opponent's side. So after they play their hard removal, perhaps they won't immediately be able to play their large minion, which could be a Titan, could be any number of big things. Cologarn is clearly best in a late game value match-off where both players are playing huge cards. Ultimately, it is a tall order to pay 8 mana for a card that doesn't win you the game harder. It looks like it's simply a big minion plus temporary removal because your opponent will probably strike back with removal for your Cologarn. But at least in that case, they're playing into your game. The most likely use of Cologarn is if you're able to cheat it out early. That is a really good card to cheat out because you can just keep removing your opponent's minions and then you can keep playing them because early on, it is much more difficult to remove Cologarn. So we got Disguised Kethir, 5 mana, 3/3. Each turn this is in your hand, transform into a random card in your opponent's deck. Chameleos never worked out. I don't see Disguised Kethir working out either. The turn you draw Disguised Kethir, similar to Chameleos. That's a 5 mana, 3/3. So, really bad top deck. Angry Hellhound, 4 mana, 2/5 beast with Rush, has +4 attack on your turn. So 4 mana, 6/5 Rush, essentially, the turn that you play it. If Angry Hellhound survives to your turn, once again, it'll have 6 attack. So the goal would be to hit into something with low attack and high health. A 4 mana, 6/5 Rush is just a good card. At worst, it's a fireball on a minion. At best, it's a fireball on a minion, and you're left with a pretty threatening body, because if you don't deal with it, then it's another fireball on a minion. Has some beast synergy, and I'm going to mention that it could be considered in a lot of control decks, but ultimately there's so many cards just from this set that you would legitimately want to consider in a control deck that the Angry Hellhound is probably a generic arena card. Runefield Golem, 4 mana, 4/4 battlecry, discover a weapon from any class. It's like Worgen Roadie, which is a value card that I had considered putting in a number of decks. It's better because it's faster, you immediately get the weapon. It's a discover. The downside is, in Festival of Legends, there's a number of weapons that are mostly synergistic with specific class mechanics. So that's going to dilute the weapon pool a lot. Ultimately, because of that, it is likely that you will choose one of the other value generation cards, of which there are many in this set. Starlight Welp, 3 mana, 4/3 dragon. Battlecry, get a random card from your starting hand. I'd say this is better than Paparazzi because you are getting a card that began in your deck. For a card to have been in your deck, the card must have been pretty good. This is actually very similar to Draw a Card. 3 mana, 4/3 Draw a Card is very good. So the point of these cards is mainly, okay, so you put up a little speed bump for your opponent. It's a 3 mana, 4/3. That's a sizable minion for the cost, and you're getting a card replacement for it. Genuinely will consider putting this in decks, especially if I need Dragon Synergy. Looking back at Time Lost Proto Drake, which is another card that generates more cards super easily. This Dragon value deck probably won't exist this set. However, when it does exist, there are some really good baseline cards that are dragons for that deck. Celestial Projectionist, 2 mana, 3/2, battlecry, choose a friendly minion, add a temporary copy of it to your hand. Needless to say, a 2 mana, 3/2, obtain a good card is a really good card. One of the main reasons why I enjoyed playing a value rogue was to balance a certain neutral card.
Our gift of the arcane enlightens us.
Bow. That's right. Now any class can do what rogue and priest do. But speaking of value generation, even if you celestial projectionist something kinda light, such as Starlight Welp on your board, that's still good. It's 2 mana 3/2, generate a good card, and then you play your Starlight Welp, which generates another good card, and you've got a 3/2 and a 4/3 in play for 5 mana, and you didn't lose any cards, so nice. Ancient Totem starts off the common reveal. 0 mana 0/3 Totem. Cool. That appears to really specifically be aimed for Shaman Totem decks, although there is a slight possibility that this is a good card to hand buff, and then you can just pay it for 0 mana. Totem is a rare minion type. Has some possibilities. We'll see. Imposing Anubisath. 4 mana 7/7. Taunt. Wow. Wow. Actually, wow. Can't attack. I don't care about the can't attack. I'm playing control deck. I want to play a 4 mana 7/7 taunt. The point is really to just put up a speed bump, and that is a really big speed bump. I actually think this card's insane. Yeah, it can't attack, but that's not a downside because your control deck is not really aiming to kill your opponent through damage. It's to survive until a later game. And a 4 mana 7/7 is big, and it has taunt. Like, wow. Criminally underrated right now. But don't worry to our tempo decks who are trying to dismantle the value of control decks. You're getting a nice card here in Drone Deconstructor. 1 mana 1/2 mech, Battlecry, get a 1/1 magnetic spark bot with a random bonus effect, ranging from Reborn, Divine Shield, Taunt, Rush, Wind Fury, Lifesteal, Stealth, and Poisonous. So a lot of these bonus effects are very, very strong indeed. The fact that it's 2 mechs in 1 means that decks that like playing mechs will love playing a 1 mana mech that generates another 1 mana mech. If you magnetic the Poisonous onto your Shark for Mage, that's pretty gross. You just kill everything. Magnetize the Lifesteal onto the Shark. Similarly, you get a bunch of health. Yeah, Drone Deconstructor, definitely going to be seeing a lot of play here. Okay, we got Trog Exile, 3 mana 4/4 Rush. Battlecry, deal 4 damage to your hero. 4 damage to your hero is not that big a downside, but it might be enough of a downside that, given that I'm not sure 3 mana 4/4 Rush sees play, even though that is a compelling stat line, given that Angry Hellhound exists as an option, I'm not entirely sure I would play Trog Exile. There's another option. Relentless Warg, 3 mana 2/4 Rush Beast. After this attacks and kills a minion, restore this to full health. Interesting in a hand buff deck. Then you can attack into something bigger and restore this to full health. This is the type of card that could single-handedly lock your opponent out, because if this gets to, even with a +4 hand buff, 6/8 with Rush, you attack into something rather big, maybe like a 6/6, 5/5, and then it just regenerates to full health. You can just do that every single turn. Actually pretty interesting, and isn't too bad if it does kill like a 3/2 early. Worth considering, even more considering in a hand buff or menagerie deck. Or both. Tram Operator, 5 mana 4/4, mech, Battlecry, draw a mech. The next mech you play costs 2 less. For the mech value decks out there, which I'm not entirely sure exists, but combined with the legendary mech that draws 2 magnetics, and makes them cost 2 less. It seems like there's a theme here of potentially a mech value deck, and if that deck takes off, Tram Operator is ultimately similar to those earlier cards we looked at, a value generation, good for the cost card. Because when you consider the 2 mana discount, then this is like a 3 mana 4/4, which drew you a card that you put into your deck, a mech. If you have a specific mech in your deck that you want to tutor, Tram Operator can do that as well. We got another value card coming up. Man, that's a lot of value cards, so I'm enjoying this. You got the Serenite Tolvir, 4 mana 3/5 taunt. Whenever this is attacked, draw a card. Great card in the right meta, where you're fighting aggro type decks which have a lot of small minions. Which could happen, because you saw that Drone Deconstructor. these mech decks could potentially start off with some pretty early and plentiful mechs. Another one of those interesting anti-aggro cards that you may want to consider in your control deck so that you can not only, prevent health damage, but you can also draw cards at the same time so you don't run out of cards. Nice. You got a Flame Revenant, 2 mana, 2/3 elemental. After you summon an elemental, give it +1/+1. Good in an elemental deck, but an elemental deck does not appear to exist at the moment. We'll revisit it if an elemental theme seems to pop up. Notably good with the Mage Synthesize. Generates 3 elementals. Flame Revenant plus the 1/2/3 elemental. Could be something, for sure. We're going to end pretty strong with these last 2 cards. The first of which is Victorious of Raikou. 1 mana, 1/2. After this attacks, get a 2/3 Valkyr that costs 1. So a 1 mana 2/3 is very strong in a tempo and aggressive deck. This reminds me a lot of Peasant, the hallmark 1 mana 2/1 that you had to remove. It's significantly harder to remove a 1 mana 1/2 because a lot of the classes can coin hero power or just hero power to kill the Peasant. Killing the 2 health minion actually will require you to use a early game card. And if you don't, then you get punished by snowballing, because a 1 mana 2/3 is a very good card for the tempo deck to draw and play early against you. It's possible Victorious Raikou will survive 2 turns, and you'll face 2 discounted early game minions. I think this card is a addition to early game tempo decks and is the card that you want to most draw on turn 1 and play on turn 1. And finally, we have Ravenous Kraken. 3 mana 2/5 beast, battlecry, destroy a friendly minion, death rattle, summon a copy of it. This is a really strong death rattle. You could certainly base a number of death rattle themes across Hunter and Rogue and Death Knight. Death Knight actually has a death rattle theme specifically with this one. Death Growl is a card. You destroy something valuable, you play Death Growl, and you have a bunch of other minions, perhaps summoned because Unholy summons a swarm of minions. You Ravenous Kraken your egg, you Death Growl that Death Rattle, the Ravenous Kraken, and then you summon more eggs onto your adjacent minions. And then when those minions die, you summon more eggs, which then have their own scary death rattle. And you Kraken an egg, by the way, which means that, the egg hatched into new stuff. Yeah, that really could be a thing. So all in all, I think this set of neutral cards is actually very impressive. But the Death Knight reveals are right around the corner. Very exciting. I lead the class reveals off. So, Death Knight hype?